Philip, the death toll, as we've been saying, has risen again in the last couple of hours. How is the rescue effort looking?
Well, first of all, it's that little bit easier because I think this is the first time in quite a few days that I'm actually able to talk to you with no rain here. It hasn't been raining for quite a few hours. That's very, very good news indeed for the city of Houston. You're right, the death toll has risen, and I think we can safely say that it will rise further when the flood waters recede, and that won't happen for quite a few days. Now, you mentioned the shelter behind me. This is one of very, very many. It's also one of many shelters that are absolutely full. Originally, there were only supposed to be 200 people in this shelter. At one point today, there were 380. And when you look at the central shelter in downtown Houston, the convention center that was supposed to house 5,000 now holds pretty much double that amount of people. There is quite a lot of talk, and there are many local officials who are saying that maybe 30,000 beds will be necessary for all of those who will be evacuated and all of those who will have to leave their homes. All of that's still to come because floodwaters can still rise despite the rain having given us a break for now.
Indeed, and the president himself, Donald Trump, now in Texas to view the situation for himself.
Yeah, it was a very short visit from Donald Trump, and he didn't come here to Houston, though there is still that possibility that he will come back to the state and come to this city at the weekend. The White House says he will be coming back to Texas, still to be confirmed exactly where he will be. Now, this wasn't a visit about, it seems, meeting those who might have suffered because of Hurricane Harvey. Donald Trump didn't really get close to any flooded areas. He visited Corpus Christi first. That is a city on the southern coast of Texas where the hurricane first hit on Saturday morning. Then he went to the state capital, Austin, to see the Emergency Operations Center. Now, part of the point of this visit was also not to get in the way of the emergency operations and the rescue operations underway here in Houston, and that he did not do by going to different places. I can tell you that people in Houston aren't necessarily talking about this. They have more important things, in their opinion, to worry about right now than a presidential visit.
And we've mentioned that a curfew is being put in place in Houston. What's the idea behind this curfew order? Is there fear of looting?
Yeah, that's exactly it. That is why this curfew has been imposed. It was supposed to be originally from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. That has been changed from midnight to 5 a.m. So a 5-hour-long curfew in the whole city of Houston. And the fear is indeed that looters will move into those areas that were completely abandoned by those who had to evacuate their homes, and especially those neighborhoods where the floodwaters might already be receding in some parts. That would give them access to homes that are completely abandoned. I came across a scene today where some neighbors in one part of Houston thought they had seen looters. Now, they hadn't done anything, but these were two men in a rental car who weren't usually in that neighborhood, and that gave them reason enough to be suspicious. They called over the fire chief, who I was with at the time, and they asked for those people to move from the neighborhood because they believed they were looters. So this is a real fear in many parts of Houston, hence the curfew. We do not know for how many days it will be in place, though.
All right, thanks so much for now. Philip Crowther reporting there for us from Houston in Texas. Well, 2 dams in the Houston area are under massive pressure currently. Authorities warning that they will have to cause more flooding as they release water in a controlled operation. Residents living close by a chemical plant in the town of Crosby have also been ordered to evacuate due to a rising risk of explosion. Yenna Lee has more details.
Barker Reservoir was built to stop downtown Houston from flooding. It operates in conjunction with nearby Addicks Reservoir, taking in excess water from Houston's main river. But both the 70-year-old reserves are overflowing.
We were advised by the Corps of Engineers that the Addicks Dam will have some what we call uncontrolled release rate. Basically, the ponding levels in the dam have exceeded the elevation at the tail, which is the north end between Clay Road and Tanner.
Engineers have started to release water from the major reservoirs to ease strain on their dams. adding to the floodwater that has already inundated the country's fourth largest city. South of Houston, Brazoria County authorities posted a message on Twitter, warning residents that a levee at Columbia Lakes had been breached. Reinforced hours later, officials say they do not know how long it will hold. Downpours are expected to ease in the Houston area as the storm creeps on to the east. Torrential rains are to hit southeastern Texas and move to Louisiana this week.
Well, India's financial capital, Mumbai, is also battling flooding. That flooding brought about by heavy monsoon rains. Authorities struggling to evacuate people from the flood zone, while medics are worried that the waters could spread disease. Train services, roads and flights have all been disrupted. Weather officials forecasting that heavy rains will continue over the next 24 hours. They're urging people to stay indoors. Now, the head of the United Nations has challenged the Israeli Prime Minister over his comment that Israeli settlers would never be moved from occupied Palestinian land. On Tuesday, Benjamin Netanyahu said that there will be no more uprooting of settlements in the land of Israel. Over 600,000 Israeli Jews now live in the West Bank and East Jerusalem. UN head Antonio Guterres has met with Palestinian leaders in Ramallah. He's due to visit Gaza this Wednesday and also Tel Aviv.
I want to express very strongly the total commitment of the United Nations, but my personal total commitment to do everything for a two-state solution to materialize. I've said several times that there is no plan B to a two-state solution.
Antonio Guterres speaking there. Now, while he's been in Jerusalem, a Palestinian family there is facing eviction. They've lived in the home for more than 5 decades and have spent 5 years fighting their eviction in the courts. Our Jerusalem correspondent Iris Makler sent us this report.
Mohammed Shamasneh hasn't gone to work in weeks. Instead, he sits outside his parents' house in Sheikh Jarrah in East Jerusalem, waiting for Israeli police to evict them.
As a family, we are under huge psychological pressure. We are extremely tense. It feels like a tree that's being pulled up by its roots.
He was born in this house. His mother, Fahima, has lived here since 1964, moving in when this part of the city was under Jordanian rule.
I'm worried about losing this house. I'm worried not because I'm afraid of Israel. No, because I'm worried of the clashes that might erupt after it is taken between the Israelis and the youth who will defend our house.
Her daughter's house nearby is also under threat. They believed these homes belonged to the Islamic religious authority, the Waqf. After years of litigation, an Israeli court decided it belonged to a Jewish family. The Shamasnehs deny this.
Once they said, it's not yours, I don't feel any guilt, anything in favor of them.
Jerusalem City Councillor Aryeh King blames the Shamasneh family for not paying rent. He founded the Israel Land Fund to help Jewish property owners bring these cases to court.
We have few goals, but the main ones are to buy or redeem, bring back to Jewish hands maximum land for maximum Jews.
Following the last court order, the eviction of the Shamasnehs is due by the 9th of September.
Staying in the Middle East, buses carrying hundreds of Islamic State group militants and their families have now arrived in eastern Syria. Their evacuation from the Lebanon-Syria border negotiated in the first publicised deal of its kind. Around 600 militants were allowed to leave in total, in exchange for identifying the location of the remains of Lebanese soldiers who were captured by the Islamic State group in 2014 and later killed. That deal was brokered by the Lebanese Hezbollah faction. It sparked controversy in both Iraq and in Lebanon. Opposition leaders in Venezuela are being threatened with trial for treason as the powerful new Constituent Assembly says it will prosecute people deemed to have been supporting new economic sanctions from the United States. The White House unveiled those new measures on Friday, saying they were aimed at stemming funding to what it called the dictatorship of President Maduro. France's president has also accused Nicolas Maduro of creating a dictatorship. This one of the harshest condemnations yet of the South American regime by a European leader. It's 4 years now since the deadly collapse of a textiles factory in Bangladesh, and the owner of that complex has now been sentenced to 3 years in jail. More than 1,100 people died in the Rana Plaza complex